The Leadership in Law podcast is powered by Law Marketing Zone. Transform your firm's digital presence with expert marketing solutions tailored exclusively for attorneys at lawmarketingzone.com.
Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Gary Martoccio, to the show today. Throughout his legal career, Gary is focused exclusively on representing employees against employers. Gary has earned a reputation for his commitment to advocating for workers' rights and securing justice for his clients. Gary's practice spans both state and federal court, as well as before the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and equivalent state agencies. With a keen understanding of employee law, he navigates complex legal landscapes to ensure that employees receive the representation they deserve. To date, Gary has achieved remarkable success, recovering over $50 million for employees throughout his career. In addition, Gary has achieved successful results for his clients in over 200 federal lawsuits, all of which he served as lead counsel. Gary's dedication to his clients and his track record of significant recoveries underscore his role as a leading voice in employment law. His commitment to fighting for employees' rights remains the cornerstone of his practice. I'm excited to have you here, Gary. Welcome.
So I mean, Marilyn, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Very impressive. Tell us a bit about your leadership journey and getting to where you are now.
Yeah, so I worked at a bigger employment law firm. First of all, plaintiff side employment law firms, so we represent employees, as you just indicated with that read on there. I worked there for about 12 years. I started my own law firm about 7 months ago. So we're about 7 months into the new firm, doing the same thing that I've been doing my entire career, representing employers. Yeah, it's been great so far. So good. I think you hope for, and yeah, it's fun.
Fantastic. So thinking about you started in a larger firm and then struck out on your own. What did you do as far as leadership? Did you have a mentor in that program or in that firm, or did you hire a coach? What helped you decide to strike out on your own?
Right. No, it was, the firm was great that I worked for a while. Really just trial by fire kind of. I started working there straight out of law school, and I had a little team within the firm that reported to me and, kind of took on that leadership role as the lead attorney. I always had at least one or two assistants working for me, and then at least one or two attorneys working under me for the past several years at that firm. So I really got to the point where I felt like it was time to take that lead. And basically right now I've got a handful of employees at the new firm. A couple of them worked at our prior firm. So it's been great. My day-to-day feels very similar to what I did while, working in a team within a bigger firm. So I can't complain one bit. But as far as what I did to prepare, I think it's just kind of trial by fire. It's been, it's been a good experience. I think experience the best was get in there and do.
I think having your own team in the other firm so that you had management experience in essence before moving on. That's one thing a lot of time is missing is business management, people management. That's completely different, kettle of fish than prosecuting cases or working on cases. So very interesting. And what made you choose employment law?
That's a good question. I knew I wanted to be on the plaintiff side. I didn't know specifically what part of that side. I always like being the underdog, fighting for the little guy, so to speak. So I knew I wanted to be on the plaintiff side. Employment law was just the first plaintiff side job that I got, and I'm loving it. And it's worked out great, and it's all I've ever done. So no exact science as to how we got here, but it's great. And I'm glad I found this area a lot for sure.
Fantastic. And Do you, with all your experience and obviously your successes, do you find that in the state of Florida, are you working at some larger idea goal about helping to like craft the law or anything like that?
I think that would be a little ambitious to say that we can impact changes in the law. But I will say, I think we impact how employers, handle things and situations. And, the fact that there's attorneys like myself. So I'm licensed in Florida and 8 other states. So practice kind of around the country, and I think sometimes when employers see, that there's attorneys like myself out there that maybe think twice or handle things a little more cautiously. And, I think that benefits the greater good of the whole there, benefits employees across the globe. So yeah, as far as changing law, I don't know if I, can say I've done that. Now, case law, there's some, like when you're litigating a case in court, whether it be state or federal court, yeah, there's been some decisions that judges have given their interpretation on certain cases of ours over the years that I've seen cited as, to basically every case is different, but what you try to do when you're litigating a case in court is look at precedent that's been set by judges prior ruling and case and try to say this is why this is similar or different than ours. So some case law changes we've had, I think we've had some favorable ones. Not every case is favorable either. Sometimes we get case law that's unfavorable right out there. So it's a give and take. It's just like any game that you play, right? There's going to be, the loss. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think we've had some favorable case law out there, just not statutes change, right? That, a little bit above. Shit.
Okay. All right. So then obviously law firms are employers as well. What do you think, what are you seeing over the course of your career as being like the biggest pro, the number one thing that people slip on, employers slip up on?
Right.
Is there any particular like top 1 or 2 problems that you're always bumping into?
Right. Yeah. The most common case that we have is related to medical issues. So you have an employee that needs to miss time due to a certain medical condition or needs an accommodation due to a certain medical condition. There's various protections, ADA, American Disabilities Act, FMLA, the Family and Medical Leave Act. So I think you see employers trip up quite a bit there with those type of situations. And then we get a lot of pregnancy, discrimination, paternity leave, retaliation type situations. So that's another common case. And then you have your discrimination and retaliation cases where someone's being discriminated against based on race, age, gender, et cetera. There's several protected classes. That's probably the third bucket we see. And then you have sexual harassment. I think that's something that employers are really aware of it, because there was a big Me Too movement over the years that I think opened up employers' eyes to that, but we still see quite a bit of those type of cases. So yeah, that's a quick synopsis that doesn't encompass every type of crime, but that's those 3-4 buckets that I just mentioned there. That's the vast majority of claims.
Right. That's very interesting. The medical leave and the sexual harassment. I think the Me Too movement made it up in employers' eyes as to what that entails.
Right.
It can be a very vast array of behaviors that can be classified as that.
Right.
So tell us more about employer rights and employees' rights in the workplace as far as do you help employers make sure that they're being prepared, or do you work more with as employees come to you with problems?
100% on the employee side. So I always represent employees. I've never represented an employer. So yeah, I'm seeing it through the lens of the employee. There's a lot of people that think that something may be wrong, but it's not always illegal. So a lot of people have workplace issues. I say very few have a specific claim, and the claims fall under the majority of them, what I just mentioned there, the medical stuff, discrimination, sexual harassment, those type of things, where we see pregnancy related issues, just general harmful, wrongful treatment, supervisor being mean, things like that, not necessarily illegal unless it touches on one of those categories that I mentioned. Well, there's some other exceptions. I kind of get a general idea, but I think the biggest misconception is there are a lot of things that are wrong and unfair that aren't necessarily illegal in the workplace. So people want to know. I think people should know what the difference is, right? So they know the type of leverage that they have in the workplace, right? There are a lot of things that people come to me and they'll be absolutely shocked that that's not illegal, and I don't blame them, right? It's just not that I disagree with them. They're like, I can't believe it's wrong, but unfortunately we have to work within the framework of the law that we have until it changes. And yeah, sometimes you have to have difficult conversations where you tell someone, look, I get that that's wrong, but it's not necessarily illegal. But if you do think that the wrongful treatment you're receiving does touch on one of those categories that I mentioned, whether it be that discrimination, sexual harassment, pregnancy, whatever it may be, make sure you're vocal about it. Make sure you're clear about it to the employer and that you document your concerns, because that's going to help you going forward if you do have to bring a claim.
So is it similar to, and I know it's completely different, but similar to workers' comp in that if something happens, it does need to be documented at the place of work and before you. At least they've been notified that there's a problem and they can either address that problem before they come to you, or is it just part of the paperwork to go forward?
Right. Yeah. It's not like it's necessary to document to be able to bring a claim, but it is helpful. Where workers' comp, yeah, you probably want to have specific medical documentation and all that stuff, but it certainly is helpful. You don't want to just be raising concerns for the first time when you're terminated, right? That doesn't look that great for your claim. Not that it's impossible to bring a claim, if that's the case, but it is more helpful if you have documentation and you raise the concerns leading up to the termination.
Excellent. Okay. And what are you seeing is for the future of employment law landscape? I mean, you said you're licensed in 8 states. Is there any one that's more, or 9? Is there any one that's more employee friendly? Is that?
Yeah, right. So there's certain states that have more protections than others. There's certain states that have state laws in addition to the federal law. So the federal laws are the law of the land. And a lot of states have their own laws that expand on those federal laws. So yeah, you'll see. So I practice in Illinois, Massachusetts. They're a little more favorable for employees, and a lot of it's stems from not only the state laws of protection, but the case law in those different jurisdictions. So every state has different judges and different precedent. Even in the federal court system, the federal court up in Illinois, the 7th Circuit, it's called. That's where their case law from is different than the federal court, where maybe in the 5th Circuit in Texas, where I'm also licensed. But we see good results everywhere. Honestly, it varies, but not as much as you may think, across the country, just because we have that federal law. But yeah, I mean, so, there are certain states that have a little more protection than others, maybe have some unique laws, for example, like Illinois has a law where you have to have 1 day of rest every 7 days that some states don't have. Some states require PTO being paid out upon termination, and some others don't. But those are the type of things that vary. But as far as like termination related things, medical stuff, that's all going to be covered by federal law. You don't see great variances in results of cases, honestly. It's not as much as you think across the country.
Very interesting. Now, being that you are licensed in so many states and they're far apart, I'm sure that you do a lot of remote court cases.
Right. Absolutely. So COVID really escalated that. So pre-COVID, I was doing a ton of traveling for mediations. Federal court, even before COVID, there wasn't a ton of in-person appearances, but there would be, maybe 1 or 2 per case. But since COVID, almost everything is done via Zoom as far as mediations are concerned. Mediation is a big part of employment law. You settle a lot of cases there. It's where things get resolved. So both the courts and then the EEOC, which is a step before you get into a lawsuit in most employment cases, the EEOC uses Zoom quite a bit. So in-person appearances are few and far between. Even if you get into a lawsuit, depositions, some attorneys are, sticklers about taking them in person, but most, like myself, are fine with taking them virtually, just like we are right now. I think it saves cost for your client. It saves the other side cost, the party you're opposing. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of depositions via Zoom. But yeah, I mean, if the case advances, to the point of a trial, or if the other side's insisting on an in-person deposition, then we may be in person. But otherwise, yeah, a lot can be done virtually. And you have not quite as much travel as prior to COVID as is required. Which is nice. I miss getting to see some of these really cool places that I'm licensed in our firm as offices, but it's a little, I guess, a little less strenuous as far as the travel.
True, and keeps the cost down as well. And so your current firm, you've been in for 7 months, and you just hit the ground running from your other firm.
Right. Yeah. So on the legal side of things, same exact process day to day, right? The only difference in being with a firm and being on your own is you have to find cases. So that's the big difference, being on the business side of things. So legal side, everything is totally the same. The business side of things is where, my role was expanded to. So yeah, I've had some really good people working with me, both direct employees and using some other resources to help on with some business management stuff. I use a company that helps me with marketing, SEO, a lot of the technology stuff. I have another good resource company that we use for the tech related stuff. So it's been great. I found, so helpful and so worth it to pay helpful individuals with those business side items so I can focus on, the important part, the legal side of things and getting results for the clients.
Exactly. Outsourcing, definitely. There's always someone that enjoys doing things that you don't enjoy doing.
Right.
That's something very cool to understand.
Exactly.
Well, looking at your new firm or your business, if I could wave a magic wand and solve any problem in your firm, what problem would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I think we're trying to automate a lot of our back end processes. So there's a lot of writing as far as drafting initial letters to an employer, things of that nature. And I think getting that automation down to taking a client's information and their story and all the notes that we have in the file and putting it into a letter and doing that very concisely and trying to automate that process and streamline it while still keeping the quality of work up, I think would be the biggest thing. We're working on that right now. So I think expedite that and wave that magic wand. That would be awesome. And yeah, I would never use like automation or AI for legal research. I think most courts ban it, and you don't want to do that when you're researching case law and citing stuff or anything like that. But as far as just telling your client's story, I think very helpful. Allow you to help more clients and help your current clients faster. So yeah, we're working on that currently, and that would be a nice the way the magic wand to get that going.
Yeah, and with ChatGPT's new projects, it makes it easier to keep the communication contained in one folder and to combine those and create that. Very interesting. Well, thinking about the people that are listening that maybe have started a new firm or they're looking to start a new firm, do you have any advice, any special takeaways you'd like them to take away from the episode?
Sure. I think the biggest thing that I got advice on, and I think this is spot on, is the people that you hire and that you work with matter. So I think don't be afraid to invest in people. I think it's been well worth it. Yeah, maybe I was thinking, this, a lot of money to pay this vendor to do this or that, or it costs a lot to bring on this attorney or this assistant. They're all well worth it. The people are worth it. They're what makes the business go around. Yeah, I would overpay versus underpay on certain things. As far as the people are concerned, you can try to cut costs in other places, but in the people, I think that's where you really want to make their investment. You'll see that back tenfold, get the right people.
I love that. Yeah, they say hire personality and you can teach culture. So very cool.
Right.
I love that. Well, this has been very interesting. I love the transition from a larger firm to your own firm, and you're still just moving along really well. And you've got a great track record, so I'm sure that helps bring in cases. I know my listeners would love to keep tabs on you, connect with you. Where's the best place for them to connect?
Yeah, email is probably best. It's Gary at martoccofirm.com, MARTOCCIOFIRM.com. So and our website has all the information as well, martoccofirm.com. And that's probably the best way. Got our Instagram page that we're trying to work on. Maybe that's the second magic one, but employment law Gary, all one word. That's also a good way.
I love that. Well, that's excellent. I'll make sure that these links, including your Facebook and your LinkedIn, are included in the show notes. And this has been really great having you today. I've enjoyed having the conversation about the employment law and where you see it going. So thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks, Marilyn. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.